and welcome to Experiences in Gamesmithing. The gaming industry is one of the fastest growing entertainment industries in the world. They have been around for decades, providing providing entertainment for children and adults alike. From the creation of Pong in the 1950s, video games have evolved rapidly in terms of diversity and content and shows no signing of stopping in the upcoming years.
So, pertaining to this, there is a rising demand of professionals in this field, from artists to programmers to designers to audio engineers and whatnot. There are many exciting job roles available which are not just about playing games but about creating them too. One such creator we have amongst us is Tanmay Kale, our own project's head of Tag Club, who has done internship in Nazara Gaming. So Tanmay, are you ready for interview?
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's begin.
Okay, let's
Uh,
start.
So, how did you start your journey in game development, Mr. Tanmay?
well, I'd been playing video games for a very long while. I was also like even more tempted by video games because when I was a kid, my parents didn't really let me play a lot. Like they wouldn't get me any of the consoles. Like I had to beg a lot to get my first PSP. So that was even more like enticing. Video games became more of a elusive thing that because I can't have it now, I want it even more. So that's how I got into video games and playing video games. And I think when I was around 15, I realized that okay, it's like because game development was getting more democratized with like free software, and I had started watching some game development videos as well. And I was watching this one interview with Yahtzee Crosso, who's like a video game critic, and he was talking about how to get into game development. And he was like, advice for getting into game development is to just develop games, because there are so many free programs out there that uh, you have no excuse to not be doing it if you want to. So just get started. So yeah, that's how I got into it. That's how I tried following along my first tutorial video, and yeah.
Okay, so can you tell our users what challenges you faced in and out of your home?
Challenges. I think the biggest not I don't want to say problem, but the biggest let's go with challenge only. The biggest challenge with video game development is that it's really vast. Like there are so many different skills that you need to be able to make something good. Like you need to know how to make assets for 3D and 2D games depending on what you want to make. So you need to know like sprite animation. You need to have a sense of color theory. You need to be able to model your 3D models. You need to know texturing, materials. Like you need to know a lot of 3D animation as well. You need to know programming, of course. So and music, you need to have some basic tools. Now, you don't need necessarily, but if you're trying to create an authentic experience, like by not just uh, getting free music from online or getting free assets from online, which is perfectly fine if you're just starting out. But if you want to create like something you made completely on your own, then you need to learn all of these things one by one, and it can be quite time consuming, and it might not come together very well in the final product. But yeah, that's the biggest challenge with game development is how vast it is, and even the components in game development are vast in themselves. So like if you start going into music, then music theory is a vast subject. If you start going into 3D asset development, then 3D animation and all of that is very vast subject. So yeah, it can be also quite distracting to learn game development because you can be pulled into all of these different domains and then start learning those instead of what you should be focusing on.
So, Mr. Tanmay, with a lot of things present in game development, And with the current notion of gaming in India is like games are a waste of time. How did you stay motivated every day to make your own games?
Well, I mean, it's just a fun process, right? Like it doesn't stop you from playing games just because everyone is like it's such a waste of time. You'll still play it if you want to. You'll still play it if you enjoy playing games. So yeah, and it's a rewarding process whenever you make something of your own and then you post it online. Uh, it's uh, it's a little dose of dopamine that makes you want to work on another project or learn something new. And uh, a lit it's less of a part in game development than I would like, but a big part of game development is programming, and I like computer programming and problem solving and all of that. So that also helped because I like thinking about the various visual components and how they interact in terms of code, and how would I implement these physics equations that I learned in 11th and 12th in a program to simulate like actual movement like gravity and all. So it's fun to solve all these problems, and so yeah, that's it's just fun. It's a fun process.
Okay, so as you mentioned in your previous question about creating music, you literally create your own music.
Well, it's more like chip tune. I mean, it's not like some this orchestrated Star Wars symphony. It's just like you have these little tools online that you can just press a few buttons and then have these tracks which you can arrange, and it's just a matter of repetition. Like once you have those 4 or 5 notes that you keep repeating, you have some music. You need those few notes and a melody. That's it. Like
Whoa,
there's Yeah, and there's like free online tools available. You can do the whole thing online. Like it's that easy. If you want to do it, like if you want to make good music, I don't make good music. I just make like functional music, like makeshift music, something that I can just use in this project and work. If you want to make good music, then there are like good professional tools. And same goes for animation also. You can make 2D. You can make impressive looking animation online, but it takes like just 1 or 2 hours online. Yeah.
okay, that seems quite interesting. So nowadays we have a lot of gaming engines. Which game engine you use and how much time did you invest in game dev?
My favorite game engine to use right now is Godot. Godot engine. It's spelled Godot, but it's pronounced Godot. I'm not sure why that is. I think it's named after some play where the character is named Godot. So yeah, I like Godot engine because firstly it's full of features. Like you can do 2D and 3D game development, and the main uh, the best thing about Godot is it has a dedicated 2D renderer. So what that means is, for example, if you have a 3D game engine like Unreal Engine and you want to make 2D games on it, it's like you just have a camera in an orthographic view. Like if you just have a camera like this that just looks forward and goes left or right, and then you just use that to make 2D games. That's not actual 2D. That's like fake 2D, right? You know what I'm saying? Like if you just have a bunch of 2D images moving in 3D space, that's not a 2D renderer. So it uses the same amount of resources as a 3D renderer, but it still gives you only 2D functionality. So having a dedicated 2D renderer saves on a lot of performance. And Godot has separate rendering for 2D and 3D. So you can't like mess them up too much. And I like 2D making 2D games anyway, because when I first started it, 3D was interesting, but in most of my projects it didn't come together very well. Like it looked really bad in most of my 3D projects. And 2D is easier to make because you can keep simple color schemes. You don't have to uh, you don't have to make anything look good, because simplicity is what makes it look good. So yeah, Godot is my favorite right now, and I think I spent around. I mean, it's tame compared to how much time I spend on actual playing video games. Like I can have upwards of thousands of hours, but with Godot, I think I might have worked on various projects across several years for around uh, 200 hours total. So yeah.
Uh, so as you said, there is a lot of process going on in creating a video game, right? So 2D and 3D. So what challenges have you faced while making such projects?
It's the same, I'm not familiar with any of these things. Like I don't know. A little bit of music I'm familiar with because I used to learn Indian classical music when I was till I was in 10th class. Uh, but I had I still am I'm terrible at drawing. So making any kind of artwork for games is really hard. Like I can only attempt pixel art, and even that is passable most of the time. So I don't even bother with that. I usually just make like squares. I'll stick to some color scheme, uh, and just make squares and circles as characters. And depending on what role they have, I'll give them a different color. And to keep it consistent, you can like look up color palettes online and follow that color palette so that it doesn't look too bad. uh, yeah, having a simple color scheme doesn't look too bad if you have a palette as reference. And yeah, that's the kind of issues I have usually. It's those of inexperience, because the only thing I'm experienced at is programming. So yeah, that's my biggest issue.
Yeah, challenges are something which will never leave you alone whenever you're trying to make a project.
Yeah.
How many projects you have made till now?
I mean, it depends on like how you.
Like roughly a number.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I can give you a number, but like it depends on like I have I must have like 30 abandoned projects, like something I started and then I either forgot about it, or I was too demotivated to continue, or just I didn't like how it was going. Some around 35. I have several folders, and projects that I posted online, or I have dared to show someone. Probably like so. Um, like I think like seven projects that I've actually shown to anyone or posted online.
Okay, and what was your favorite project among them? Like what you really liked about that project?
Uh, my favorite to work on was I think uh, I think the first project I did without following any tutorial, that was my favorite because it was like it was this clone of a game on my phone that I already really liked, and I even named it the same thing. I hope I don't get sued for that, but I mean, nobody really played it, nobody really saw it, so it doesn't matter. But it was called Spin Gun. You can still find it on itch.io. Uh, and it was like this spaceship game where you can it was just a two button game for mobile. So you can press left to rotate left, press right to rotate right, and it was a spaceship, and you have to shoot at the other alien spaceships. So the catch was that you have to press left to go left, right to go right, and both to shoot. So it was like this minimalist mechanic where you didn't have a specific button for shooting. You had to like press both to shoot, and it got out of control quickly because like if you shoot while you're turning, the spaceship would just start spinning and you wouldn't be able to aim. So that was the challenge in the game. That was the implied challenge. Yeah, I liked how it turned out. It was actually an accidental mechanic because I didn't intend it to spin out of control. but while playing, it was actually a good challenge. Like it was kind of fun to try and control the spaceship. So yeah, I had a pleasant surprise while making it, and it was also one of the first things I made without following any tutorials. So I like that one.
So tell me, how easy is it to find a job in the gaming industry in the present situation, and what is the scope for the game industry for the years to come?
I think in India, oh, I'm sorry, wait, where's my camera off? Okay, yeah, in India, it's the most of gaming happens on mobile. There's no AAA industry, gaming industry in India, and the AAA companies that do have offices in India, they usually don't work on like India specific projects. I know that Ubisoft Pune, they work on like ports of Just Dance for different platforms, or they'll make a mobile version of some game like Rayman. I think they ported it to mobile, so they don't independently work on any projects. Uh, they usually work on projects that are already existent, made by like Montreal or something. So AAA in India, and also there's a lot of piracy in India. Like most people won't buy AAA games in India. So in the high budget gaming thing, I'm not sure what the scope is, but mobile is massive. Like everybody plays mobile games. It's not just gamers, but like their parents and grandparents play games on mobile. So if you want to start developing games, I think a nice motivating and rewarding start would be to make mobile games and uh, post them online or show it to someone, get feedback, and yeah, that mobile games will be big. I think, like, I mean, it's not like I'm an expert on markets, but mobile game is already pretty big, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. Even the gay company I was working in, it most of its revenue was from its online mobile gaming platforms. So yeah, I think mobile gaming is going to continue growing, and if we have good AAA developers over here, maybe like assuming I can find a good career in AAA game development, maybe we'll have a market for AAA games as well.
Yeah, right. Like nowadays, more and more people are having access to mobile phones and they prefer mobile gaming a lot. So, our next question for you is how is making games different in an actual company from being a solo developer?
Hmm. In an actual company, you have you have a supervisor who's gonna tell you to do it. Like it's your job now. You can't like when you're just developing on your own. You can procrastinate. You can you can if you don't want to do something, you can just leave that project. But uh, so in terms of, like you have to be a lot more disciplined uh, when you're working for a company, and that's actually something I learned over there. Like while I was working at Nazara, I learned the importance of like sitting for hours and working on something. Before that, I used to work for like half an hour on something and then leave it. And then maybe next day I'll work on it for 1 hour and then leave it. Next day maybe I won't work on it. Then on some weekend I'll completely leave it. And yeah, just stuff like that. Like it's a lot more relaxed when you're developing on your own. And it's a different story if you're like freelancing as a game developer. Then you have to be then you probably have even more work as a freelance developer than working in a company. But for a student like me who's just doing it as a hobby, who's it's a lot more discipline in working in a company.
So, Mr. Tanmay, so
Yeah.
could you tell our viewers some tips and tricks who are trying to be a game developer just like you? There are many others in this country who may have an interest in game development.
Hmm. Don't be discouraged, I guess, by how much how much there is to do, because, like I said, there's so many things that you need to know, which can look like, oh wow, opportunities to learn, or it can be daunting. I flip flop between these two. Like sometimes I'm like, oh wow, there's so much to learn, and sometimes I'm like, this is too much. Like maybe I should uh, focus on just one thing, and maybe I should just focus on programming because that's what I'm good at. And uh, so because of that, it can be a little discouraging, the whole scope of the field. And to combat that, what you can do is not be afraid to reuse someone else's work. Like it's okay as long as they have given permission to download and reuse their work. There is no shame in downloading someone else's music, or downloading someone else's sprite sheet, or even downloading someone else's code and then reusing it in your own projects. When you're starting out, it's a matter of testing things out and getting familiar with your tools. It's not about innovating from the beginning. You can, it's okay to recycle assets as long as it's legal. Like, or uh, uh, I, uh, I have done this where I haven't really checked the usage rights on images, but then also I didn't post it like as a commercial thing. But yeah, as long as the creator has given you permission, feel free to reuse assets, and there is no shame in reusing assets, and you don't have to create everything from scratch. And that's something, that's the pressure I put on myself uh, pretty much all the time. Like I hate I hate using someone else's assets. So yeah, that would be my tip. Like don't be intimidated by how much there is, and to not be intimidated, you can reuse assets and learn everything bit by bit. Like once you learn sprite animation, then make your own animations. Till then, use someone else's. Yeah.
Okay, so there are a lot of programming languages which are used for making games. So for a beginner, what do you think will be the easiest language? C Sharp, C++, Java, or Python?
That also depends. Like it depends on the scope of your project. Actually, just like one more tip for the previous question is don't keep your scope small. Like don't try to make Assassin's Creed 6 in your first attempt because you will fail. Uh, Try to keep your projects small, like really small, and keep making them smaller. If if you thought this is small enough, then you start working and it's not working, make it even smaller, make it even simpler. So coming back to this, uh, it depends on what kind of game you want to work on. So if you want to if you want to work on a simple 3D game, you don't need to know code at all. You can just use blueprints in Unreal Engine. If you want to get your hands dirty and write like me, like I don't like blueprints a lot. I like writing code better. So if you want to write code, then start with Python, and there is a library for making games on Python called Pygame. So start with that, watch a few videos, and start making something simple. Like I made for my first game on using Pygame, I made Snake, and then I made Flappy Bird, and yeah, and then I tried prototyping this idea that I had back then. But yeah, it's one of the abandoned projects that never got anywhere. Like I had this platformer idea where you control a platform with your mouse and then a character with your keyboard, so you can move the platform anywhere and the character can jump on it, but it went nowhere. So uh, keep your project small, and depending on the size of the project, it can be either no code, like with blueprints in Unreal Engine, or it can be Python, like in Pygame, or if you want to work with Unity than C Sharp. So not only it depends on the size of the project, it also depends uh, on on the engine that appeals to you the most. Now Godot is my favorite, but it has its own scripting language. It's called GD script. Like uh, so, if you feel like GD script is if you feel like the tool set that you get with Godot is nice and it's worth it to learn to learn this unknown language, not unknown, but learn this unconventional language, then learn GD script. But also GD script is a lot like Python, so it's not that hard. Like if you know Python, it you can easily get GD script. Yeah.
So, Mr. Tanmay, thank you for taking your time to attend the interview.
Yeah, my pleasure. That's no problem.
And I hope everyone is really motivated and have their questions solved, which they have about game development.
Yeah,
So it
I hope
was
so.
a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Excuse me, Tanmay.
Yeah.
We have a question in our chat box: how to make PUBG? If you have any idea about it.
How to make PUBG? Well, like, yeah, that's what I said, right? Like, if you're just starting out with game development, uh, it depends on what you mean by. Do you want like the networking capabilities with PUBG, or do you just want a simple mechanic, or do you just want a simple game in which you can shoot a gun? Because PUBG has a bunch of guns, and all of those guns have uh, different uh, fire rates, recoil patterns. Do you want to implement that as well? Because that is a question of like that's just a it's just repetition. You have to do the same thing over and over again, and it's gonna quickly grow out of control. PUBG was made by well, it was I think it was like Player Unknown, of course, that's in the name, but it wasn't just him. It was made by a small team, and now that it's this big, it's maintained by a uh, multi-million dollar MNC like Tencent. Tencent maintains and uh, fixes PUBG. So because if you're alone, then like I said in the second last question, start small. If you're trying to learn, make something really really small. Try making some game that you already have seen and try to implement that, or just try and make Mario. Try and make the first Super Mario Bros. For NES. Try and implement that. If you try and go straight for PUBG, you will fail, or you will fail if you try and make the whole thing. If you just want to make a simple first person shooter, that is manageable. But if you try and make a commercial video game as good as PUBG, as addicting as PUBG, then on first try you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah,
so,
PUBG is
Mr.
a really huge game for a beginner to make.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Tanmay, we have another question from the chat. So, what is the prospect of jobs abroad in gaming industries like Rockstar NA, Rockstar North,
Hmm.
Ubisoft, Montreal, etc.?
Uh, well, I wouldn't have a lot of experience in that because I haven't been there. But abroad, first of all, it's very, very hard. They make you work a lot of overtime. You won't have your typical 9 to 6 or 9 to 7. You can have upwards of 60, 55, 60 hours a week of just working at the office. So be prepared for that, because that one is a well-known fact about the gaming industry, is that they exploit employees a lot. There is also a lot of uh, there's also a lot of I don't know the proper word for it, but basically it's on a project to project basis. So like if you're finished with one project and the project is out, there's sometimes they just fire the employees. Once the project is out, we don't need you, so you can go now. That is also a thing rampant in the big AAA high budget gaming industry. So be prepared for that. Uh, and to get in, I guess just work on your skills, because I haven't even bothered applying in any of those places. Uh, Thirdly, there are a lot of domains. Like I said, you don't just program. You can be an artist. You can be a music composer, musician, an audio technician. You can be like a programmer. You can be you can be a game director, which is a more like creative endeavor. Uh, there's a lot that goes into game development, and they require you to be one of the best in those domain, in that specific domain. Oh, there's also playtesting. Uh, People hire playtesters to not fix, find and eliminate bugs. So playtesting is also very labor intensive. I mean, you might think, oh, I can play a video game for 12 hours a day, but when you have to do that every day as a part of your work, that also gets exhausting. This is not from personal experience, but this is from like listening. I usually listen to a lot of gaming podcasts, and all of these stories that I've heard are stories that I've heard online. And a Patriot Act is a show on Netflix. Patriot Act with Hassan Minaj. He talks about the problems in the gaming industry, and to get in, basically just have a good skill set and keep applying. Like, it's not going to be like placement where people are going to come to your college. You have to apply, and then you have to get rejected, and you have to get rejected a lot before you get accepted in one of those companies, and then you have to be prepared to work a lot. So yeah.
Okay, there are many game developers who find it difficult to get a team. So, is there any problem if you don't have a team? Like, you go solo or you have a dedicated team when it comes to making projects?
Yeah, I usually make games completely alone. Uh, Mostly because yeah, I haven't tried actually, but it's also I'm like kind of, you could say, introverted and scared of trying to talk to people, and just not good at communicating in general. But I think it's a lot easier when people have a team to make games. If you do want a team, there are a lot of you can find a lot of places online, but mainly Discord. Discord is this. I hope everyone knows what Discord is. It's like this chat software, voice, video, text chat software. Uh, it started off being made for gamers, so that you could talk among your lobby. But now it's so full of features that all kinds of people use Discord. I use Discord to learn French. Like, I have this French server where it's a bunch of French people, and I talk to them. So Discord has a lot of servers where you can find people to collaborate with. You'll have people who will just be like, okay, we have a team of 3. We need someone who can uh, we need a creative director, so we need like someone who's good with design. We need someone who can make new fonts for our game or work on the design elements of our game, and then you can reach out to them and then work with them. So it's easy to find a team online nowadays. And if you want to find a team on Discord, just type like uh, game development servers Discord, and you'll find a bunch of people who will be collaborating, helping each other out. Or if you don't have to type, you don't have to search for Google. You can just join the Godot engine Discord server. Godot has an official Discord server where they post announcements, and you can post your doubts, you can post your questions, you can discuss game development in general. Yeah, so I like Discord. Discord is one of the places, or you can go on Reddit. Reddit has a game development subreddit where you can look for teams, look for people looking for teams. Yeah, so that's how you can find a team.
Okay, so that's it. We are wrapping our interview here. Thank you so much for being a part of this interview. It was
Yeah,
lovely having you. Thank you so much.
it was fun. Yeah, it was
And a
fun for me as
huge
well.
thanks to all our viewers who have taken their time to watch our interview with Mr. Tanmay.
Okay, yeah, it was a pleasure for me as well. It was uh, it was fun recalling my early days, and like I, you like to think that you haven't learned. You like to think that you're not improving, but like compared to when I was in 10th class, I think I have a few more skills than back then. So yeah, it's a nice it was a nice reflection on what's happened in the past 5 years. So yeah, thank you for that.